and welcome to episode 11 of Alternate Future of the World. Let's get into it. So, lots of things happened last episode. Notably, just let's say, that is China. China became absolutely gigantic last episode, and are now the biggest country to ever exist. Time to look over here, because, Egypt is going to be joining this Middle Eastern unification thingy, thingy-majing here. Yeah. And it'll look something like this. And now the big Middle Eastern Pact is gaining more members. Because this pact thing here is mainly against, this thing. And they're going to be inviting many countries. Like, every single one of the new countries that just popped out of the East African Federation, and even the East African Federation itself, which is basically the Congo. So, basically the entirety of Africa becomes part of this thing. Yeah. Yeah. And also over here, in Europe, despite all this giant mess going on here, there's still unification going on through alliances. And, the peace treaty of World War III doesn't allow these countries to unite for, another 100 years. Or at least for a while. Yeah. And every single one of these countries will be becoming, joining this alliance. Except you, Switzerland, your borders haven't changed. And they will not be changing for the next 15 years. In real life. Not mapping. And Iceland will also be joining. And so will Greenland, which for some reason isn't... Wait. I'm pretty sure... Wait. This part of China? No. Both of these are part of... I guess this giant Chinese imperial thingy belongs to, looks something like this now? Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. What else can happen? Why don't we do a big South American war for absolutely no reason? Because Brazil is going to decide, you know what, let's just try and take over the entirety of South America. So they betray their alliance and start invasions in South America. Yeah. And as they quickly start invading into the areas, yeah, and they would be quickly stopped by the giant Andes mountain region. But the Brazilians will be able to make a puncture through here and cut the Chilean area off. Which eventually, after a lot of fighting happens, it'll fall. Up in the north, though, Venezuela and Peru are beating, this back greatly. And they will be able to push back Brazil until the Brazilian armies will decide to come in. And then they eventually, do this, as they will be forcing the blue team to surrender. Let's look at a peace treaty. This is the peace treaty. Yeah. Now it's time to talk about space. Because this country, this giant Russian-Chinese Union, or the Communist Union of the world, is going to decide to go to space. Yeah. And what they do, they send their rockets into space. And, I guess we have space now. But I guess since they already kind of control the moon, we can go back to space. Yeah. And what do they do in space? They find Mars, of course. And they obviously will be making a colony on Mars. Like this. And it'll look something like this. For a bit. Until the Brazilians will come. And they will decide to, expand this colony as well. And make it pretty big. Maybe even bigger than the Chinese European people thing. The Chinese and the Russians. The Communist Union. Yeah. So currently this thing is getting into space. They want to extract resources from the moon, which they kind of are already. Yeah. Wait. There. And, tensions are getting high in Europe. Because all these countries want to unify. Just because they can. They want to unify in order to protect against the obvious threat. But the reason I've called them red is because they're invading Switzerland. The most neutral country in the world is being invaded. But the amount of troops in this country from this country invading Switzerland is like 20 times more than the population of Switzerland, so they quickly surrender. Yeah, that's scary. And honestly, this union could probably afford to invade all these countries right now. But there's not many countries in the world right now. And also Thailand joins Indonesia, decides to unify with Indonesia. Wait, what's happening here? Oh, the Square Alliance collapses just because it can. And some invasions are happening in America. Yeah. As countries will be getting unified. Yeah. And thus, the American government, which is still here, is successfully getting many countries to join it. But one country they really want is the New York countries up here. So they will be continuing their quests of expansion by invading all of these countries at once. Yeah. So the Americans will start by going in and having a lot of success in the New York area, New York State, as they would be taking majority of the New York State. And they would be eventually, after a while, capturing the New York City, and eventually going up into Maine and capturing it. Then they're going to go back down south to the Carolina areas, and will be taking these North Carolina wrong layer, as they will be taking all these areas. And eventually they will be continuing to invade all of these areas, and eventually the Americans are doing very successfully at this, as they invade each one at a time, and eventually, we can look at a peace treaty. Yeah, this is the treaty. And now we have the United States again, and it looks like this. But this giant thing, is not really worried. As, I wonder who would win in this scenario. America or this giant Asian thing here? Yeah. Well, Mexico's collapsing. Mexico was kind of stable because of their whole thing going on they have. But they're having many breakaway regions. The first one is in the Baja Peninsula. And very quickly, this Baja Rebellion will expand to this. They also have a huge, southern rebellion close to the capital, and big desert rebellions here, which will look like this. Eventually, the Mexican Civil War will happen, and all these groups will come together to just take down Mexico. And eventually, since a lot of the population is in support of this, and there's not many people left in Mexico, as they all moved to America after America took all the territory, and then, they would, and they passed away during World War III. And eventually, yeah, that's what happened. Peace treaty? And this is the division of Mexico. Yeah. Well, time to talk about stuff. There's not really gonna be too much going on in alternate future for a very long time. So some alternate future episodes might just become a little bit shorter. But America is going to continue their conquests throughout the next while, as they, not at the same time, but individually, will be going after all of these countries. So they will start their invasions with Florida, as they will be quickly able to take it out. Then they go after this this country here, and then eventually this country, and then Louisiana, and then they will be taking it. And then they go down here and take this country, and then eventually continue their conquest with this country, expanding a lot down south. Then they go up here and take the Wisconsin country, and then eventually the Minnesota country. And eventually we'll be invading from up north. Yeah. And eventually, all these will be invaded at the same time, as the Americans, with all their strength, are able to, do all this, and finish them all. Let's look at a peace treaty. Yeah, this is the peace treaty. So America has, conquered half the territory, and done a lot of manifest destinying. And I don't think destinying is a word. Yeah. But then this is welcome to a very important date. It's been about 100 years ever since the end of World War III. But one day, a very influential person for the world is born. When we go to the Crimean Peninsula, right here, a new person is born. His name is Alex Einstein. This is going to be the most influential person in alternate future history. And you'll see why in future episodes. This guy is, very influential. He starts living in Crimea. And when he becomes 18, he moves out to Poland to study science, as you can tell. And when he goes, he decides to continue traveling across the world looking for new things. And then one day, about 20 years after he finished college in Warsaw, he goes all the way to this lake, where he finds something very major. He goes into the lake, and he finds an underwater civilization. Yes, you're hearing that right. Underwater civilization. Yeah. And in there, it's sort of like abandoned. And what he finds in there are samples. Samples of, like, human life. Like, not quite human, but, like, human-ish. Here's a quick diagram of what a human looks like. Just a stick figure. But this human sample that he found looks like this. And basically doesn't have a body. Very different. And these samples, he goes all the way back, if I can get the right size brush. Yeah, don't do 6. He goes all the way back to his lab, which he decided to make in Warsaw. And then, he studies it. He finds that these, like, beings here were sort of, like, infinitely alive. Yeah, you're hearing that right. They basically lived forever until a huge rainstorm came and swallowed the civilization, which made all of them pass away. And then he figured out how to make it on genes. He made it so it works on not just these human thingies that they have here. Yeah. But it could also work on other humans, like these ones. It works on these ones, but eventually, after years of studying, eventually makes it so it works on humans. And he injects it in him. And, what he sees, he jumps off a building, a 100-foot building. No harm. Not even a scratch. And then he decides to put his hands on a stove for a minute. He doesn't feel pain. He doesn't get hurt at all. He decides to try it on his relative who is buried at this dot. And when he brings him back to the lab, he figures out how to bring him back to life. This is just one of the reasons why he is going to be the most influential person for alternate future history. He figured out how to make people come back to life and, how to make people immortal. In his next mission, cloning universes. Just cloning. And, his next expedition is all the way in the Middle East, where he is going to continue his travels, and he's currently almost at where his destination is, at this red dot right here. And that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Alternate Future of the World. See you in the next episode, and bye.